possible this could be a terrorist attack. I mean, it's a perfect place to have a terrorist attack. You drive up, open fire, and you've succeeded in your aim. So wide open what it could be, but this certainly shows the vulnerability of much of the United States public.
Yeah, the vulnerability. On the flip side, Colonel Gagne, you can only imagine the debate, and it's gone on really for years in the post-9/11 world, with long lines at security, and you often hear people get frustrated by the amount of time they spend in those lines, and that all these years later they're still taking their things out of their bags and taking off their shoes. But then you see an incident like this, and it reignites the debate about whether or not that security is even enough. I mean, I'm not sure, though, how you would prevent all of these soft targets from being vulnerable, as we've seen today.
That's exactly right, David. And if you think about the TSA lines, those lines are at the front end of the security problem to keep people off of airplanes that would do harm to those airplanes. This is at the back end where people are going back out into the public or going off on their daily business. So it's a very, very different problem, and it's one that we really haven't addressed, and it's very tough to do. You know, there's been an intelligence report out lately that's been made public that's talked about how they think that much of the terrorist acts that we're seeing and we'll see in the future are going to be sort of lone wolf hitting these soft civilian targets with individual spectacular attacks, that AQ and ISIS have been pushed back to the degree where these highly coordinated kind of spectacular 9/11 attacks will be less likely, and what we've seen in Europe lately will be much more likely. Now, we can't say that that's what's happened here, but it is certainly something that they'll be looking at.
And no doubt those are the immediate concerns of federal authorities who are now watching this very closely. Colonel Gagne, stay with us. We continue our live coverage here of the incident this afternoon at Fort Lauderdale Airport. We now know at least 5 people were killed when a gunman opened fire. That gunman now in custody and alive, which is certainly good for investigators who no doubt are beginning to question, if not if they've already begun, try to figure out what could have led someone to do something so awful. We do know that at least 9 injured. That number obviously fluid. These are pictures of the immediate aftermath in the Terminal 2 baggage claim area. Some of the luggage simply just left behind by people who no doubt ran. Others stunned there, the passengers who witnessed this. And we're joined now by another eyewitness. His name is Mike Starbinski. And Mike, I understand you heard the shots. Tell us what you heard, what you saw.
I was just sitting with my kids on the main level of Terminal 2, just diddling on the phone, and the service was not coming in well. I took the headphones out, and I hear popping noise, and somebody says shots fired. I grabbed 2 of my children, ran outside where my wife and my father-in-law sat. My wife took the kids, gave the kids to my father-in-law, who took them to Terminal 3, and we were looking down on the lower level, and I'm looking at a man and a woman, and a man bleeding profusely, and a woman who just says, "Help, help!" And I was looking down at a trail of blood, and I see the puddles of blood where the victim sat.
Mike, did you take that photograph? Did you take the photograph? We're looking at it now. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And what is that area? Set the scene for us. We can obviously see the horrific scene that you witnessed there. But is that part of the tarmac? Where is that? What are we looking at?
Well, no. This happened just outside of the lower level, the third door before the Terminal 3. It's a baggage claim area,
right,
where people are just picking up their goods and getting ready to head home.
And of course, we don't know the condition of that person. Just a horrific scene playing out.
No, I do not. But I tell you this much: he was alive when medical professionals picked him up. I don't know what happened to him, but he was on a stretcher within a few minutes.
So this is outside Terminal 2, the baggage claim, and that would be consistent with what authorities have been telling us so far. And anyone familiar with Fort Lauderdale Airport, you can go outside and then walk down a couple hundred feet, and then you walk back into the next terminal. And we heard from witnesses here who said that's exactly what they did. They simply ran to get out of the way. As soon as they heard people screaming shots fired, they ran to the other terminal, and in this case, it was Terminal 3 to get away from Terminal 2. That was eyewitness Mike Starbinski there, who took an image through the window looking down ground level. And we're joined now by Ismail, another eyewitness who apparently witnessed some of the actual shooting itself. Ismail?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you saw, what you heard?
So So me and my friend, we traveled together. We were running, or not running, we were walking. We were past the terminal, and then we heard screaming, and then we turned, and it looked like he had a uniform, and he had a big gun. And then he just started screaming, "I'm not Jewish, I'm not Jewish," and then he just started shooting into the crowd. And then we ran into the restroom, and then that's how I was able to get out of there.
So you said you heard the gunman who was dressed in some sort of uniform saying, "I'm not Jewish, I'm not Jewish"?
Yes.
What kind of uniform could you see in the chaos? Did you have a moment to gather any other details?
It looked like I'm not sure. It happened so fast. It was dark though.
It was dark, and the gun, you said it was a large gun of some sort?
Yes.
And you were there, Ismael, with your son, traveling with your son, and
Oh no, my friend.
Your friend.
Yeah, we
your
got
friend.
split. Yeah, we got split up in the middle of it.
Have you been able to make contact with your friend yet?
No, but I'm sure he's fine. I saw him. He was running, so the shooter was taking in the complete other direction. Going
in the other direction. All right, Ismael Burke joining us now, another eyewitness. Ismael, thank you. We're glad you and your friend are okay. But Brian Ross, you heard the witness we just heard from say that this gunman, from what he was able to see, appeared to be wearing some sort of a uniform and making comments as he was going through the terminal.
We've seen attacks in this country where people who have declared their loyalty to terror groups have worn camouflage suits or black suits with some sort of chest protector, a bullet vest of some sort. It's hard to know in these early reports just what is what. And also the picture we have of the alleged shooter, sometimes officers just escort people away. So we don't have a confirmation that person that we've seen there is in fact the shooter, other than from the person who took the picture. We do know from the mayor that the shooter, the alleged shooter, is in custody and certainly being questioned at this point, his background being thoroughly researched by the FBI. They will take a quick scan of his fingerprints. They have portable devices. They'll put that on. They will look for anything in records, whether he's a person who lives in this country or has come from outside the country.
But it is rare, as Colonel Ganyard pointed out, that you would capture someone alive.
Yes.
If it were what we have seen in some of these other terror plots. They usually kill themselves before authorities can nab them.
So this is a remarkable piece of both police work and of fire rescue work to get there so quickly and save the lives of so many.
You were looking at live coverage here on ABC News of the shooting incident that unfolded at Fort Lauderdale Airport in Florida, obviously, early this afternoon. The numbers have been fluid all afternoon, but it's believed at this point at least 5 people were shot and killed in Terminal 2, the baggage claim area where that gunman opened fire. The gunman then in custody. Obviously, we've been showing you these images captured by someone in the immediate aftermath of that shooting. At least 8 injured. That's the number authorities are going with now. At least 8 injured, at least 5 dead. And of course, you can see the fear in the faces of the passengers who stayed in that baggage claim. We've already heard from other eyewitnesses who said people simply began running, shouting to others, "There's been a shooting," and signaling to everyone to run to get out of the way. And for those of you watching right now who might have loved ones at Fort Lauderdale Airport, we understand how fearful you might be, and we're trying to carefully walk you through this as well. It's our belief that many people got away from this dangerous area, which, as we all know from our reporting here about soft targets around this country, that not only have authorities talked about the area where you check in, where the ticketing takes place, but also the baggage claim area, because as we all know, that's outside the security perimeter. In this post 9/11 world, we all know the long lines at airports, you go through security, but until now, the discussion has been it's almost impossible to secure those soft targets. But what we did hear, and this explains the pictures you're looking at right now, is that many of the passengers who were with their families, even past the security perimeter, inside the terminal waiting for their flights, that they began to hide. One woman told us she was hiding in the kitchen, but then were led outside by authorities down the stairs and onto the tarmac. And we saw hundreds of people, authorities keeping them safe. And you can see one person there on the left guiding people. And the woman we were talking to, David Curley, on the phone, said she actually had to stop talking to us, and understandably, because she said the airport workers had been so good in informing them about what had happened, and that while we were talking to her, they were telling her that they were now going to try to lead her elsewhere and off that tarmac. David Curley covers aviation. David, are you with us?
I am, David.
And I know that you said earlier that we're already getting reports from LAX, and certainly this happens whenever we have a scene like this, that other airports almost immediately beef up security.
Los Angeles and Miami both say they are enhancing their security. That means more visibility, more officers out to be seen. San Francisco, the Chicago airports tell us they are monitoring the situation. They haven't taken any further action at this point. Denver's telling us that they too are on heightened awareness but are not changing their profile at this point. The FAA says, David, despite these pictures we're seeing around Terminal 2 of all these passengers on the tarmac, the FAA is telling us that basically flights are still coming in and leaving from Fort Lauderdale. Any flight that's coming in that's supposed to go to Terminal 2 is being held, but the other terminals are operating normally at this point.
All right, that's new reporting from David Curley that the FAA now reporting that flights are coming into Fort Lauderdale and are taking off at the other terminals. So business does continue. This was just a remarkable and quick reaction here on the scene from authorities at Fort Lauderdale Airport. We are joined on the phone now by Diane Haggerty. She is another witness who saw the shooting as it took place. Diane, can you tell us what you witnessed?
We thought it was 3 people were standing at the kiosk, and we thought, I don't know what's happening, and we have to get down. This is not good. Anyway, what it was that we had to, we heard the shots, and we thought that they were, sorry, we're making to get down because I don't know what's happening. They're closing up the place.
Where are you right now? That's Diane Haggerty you've been listening to. She's another eyewitness who witnessed the shooting. She apologizing to us, and she certainly doesn't need to because it's an active situation, and she was telling us that people inside the airport are now asking people to get down. And Brian, I would suspect, obviously can't be sure of this, but perhaps they're now doing some sort of a sweep or what have you. She was unable to tell us what part of the airport she's still in.
Right, it's all being done to protect the people who are still at the airport, just out of an excess of caution to make sure that there's not a second or a third person, David, who would somehow be hiding, a secondary attack. We've seen that, for instance, in the attack in Brussels. The bombs went off in a synchronized way, but not all simultaneously, with a hope of driving people to a certain area, then setting off second bombs there. So authorities are aware. They've studied what happened in other airport attacks, and they try to use that information to figure out how they best respond. And so far, from what we can tell, this has been, as you say, a remarkable